Welcome to this episode of Golden Nuggets Tea and Tales, Season 2, powered by Husby, served by Yasin Valimulla, also known as, aka Mr. Palm Jumeirah. And you've been in the industry for a good 15
years in Dubai.
15 years.
Yep.
What would you say is the one thing you wish you knew before you embarked on your real estate career?
So I think there's a few things. I mean, interestingly enough, when I first got into real estate, I mean, I got into real estate in the UK, then I came out here, did it for 5 years, came out here. And the whole Mr. Palm Jumeirah thing as well, it came about because for me, it was the most knowledgeable person in the room, one. That's the concept I always...
That's how it was.
Yeah, so for me, I had to be very granular. So when I say I was called Mr. Palm Jumeirah, the reason for that was I went extremely granular into the details to make sure that my knowledge base was second to none. And to give you an example, when I started doing Palm Jumeirah villas, if you're familiar with Palm Jumeirah villas, there's no order to them. So you have lots of fronts, A, B, all the way up to P, and you drive onto a front, and they're all random. There's no actual, okay, A1 is this, and P6...
It's not cookie cutter.
At all, right? Which is very different to what they're doing in Palm Jebel Ali, interestingly enough. So when I first started doing the Palm Villa, I was like, how am I going to be different to the other Palm Villa specialists at the time?
And at the time, how much competition was there?
Nowhere near as much as now, but I'd say there was probably 6 to 8 really good Palm agents at the time. I'm talking 2009, 2010 now. So I, with a colleague, thought, I said, I've got a really good idea. Why don't we drive down every single front and write down the villa types? And what people don't understand is with Palm Jumeirah villas, you have types. So you have a garden home, which is a small villa, and then you have a signature, which is a large villa. But within those signatures and garden homes, you have 9 floor plates of signatures. So that's 9 floor plans and 4 garden home types. And then within that, you have 5 different facades: Mediterranean, Spanish, Arabic, European, what have you.
And then views.
So there's so many nuances involved, right? So we spent, I'd say, it took us a few months where we slowly, obviously we couldn't do it.
Mapped out the entire Palm.
Out every villa on every front, and we wrote down what it was, and then we put it on a spreadsheet. And no one at that time had that. And I remember we did, between the two of us, so we worked as a team, which I think is great, by the way, when you first start to pair up with someone and work as a team.
It's a very American thing.
Yeah, yeah. And we ended up doing about 16 villas. We sold 16 villas in the space of like 8-9 months on the Palm. Obviously, it was very different days. Numbers were very different as well. There wasn't as many agents. But what then got us, what differentiated us was the fact our knowledge was better than anyone.
Yeah.
Which is what I always, that was my key selling point. When it comes to knowledge on the Palm, there's no one better than me, right? Hence the Mr. Palm Jumeirah. But as time's gone on, interestingly enough, a lot of the knowledge that I have, it's very easily accessible now. You go into Google, you go into ChatGPT, you put a few things in there, bam, it's all there.
Yeah.
So then,
so what's my
unique selling point now,
USP?
Right? So now what I would say is, not that I never used to concentrate, but the relationships now with clients, that has to be now the number one key. I think if you can really concentrate on building those long-term relationships as well, because a lot of deals I do as well, it's multiple. There's one unit, for example, in Oceania, I've sold it 4 times over the years because the relationship has been maintained with the current owner, who then has told me to resell it. And I think sometimes agents can underestimate that element of relationships with clients, and that doesn't mean just because you meet a client, you're going to close with them within a week or 2. It could take years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had clients that it's taken years before there's even a deal that happens. But then that client, in the interim, might have given my name and contact to another client and said, by the way, he's really good.
Yeah.
Haven't closed a deal with him, but guess what? He's a good one.
He knows his stuff. Yeah.
And that happens to me all the time, where I meet clients, especially with bigger budgets, they might not end up actually buying anything because there's a lot of thought process that's involved in it. So what then ends up happening is they end up giving me referrals. So I think that relationship element is really, really key. And I think another thing as well, I think when I was younger, hustling, working 24/7, burning the candles from both sides, I thought that's the way it should be done. And I think, especially when you now go onto social media, it's all about hustling and non-stop working. And I think an element of that is true, but I think there's much more to that. And I think if you follow the whole mindset's everything, mindset is, of course, you need to have a very positive mindset to be waking up every day to go into an industry, which is really tough. You're self-employed, right? And it's a very competitive industry. But it can't just be the mindset. It can't just be the hustle and grind. Of course, you need to have the hustle and grind, and you got to make sure that, you're disciplined, you're consistent as well. But it's actually having a balance. So when I was younger, I'd say I probably was burnt out. And I think I see agents all the time. They're on social media for about a year, then they disappear for 6 months. Why? They're burnt out.
Yeah.
Even having a social media presence can give you a burnout as well,
Some
right?
people need a break from social media.
Constantly being online, and they always need to be, So for me, it became more about being a content creator rather than a consumer. I don't actually use social media that much myself. But what I've definitely understood is actually having that balance. And I think the older I've become, obviously got married, had kids, that balance has become much more key. Yes, I work hard. Yes, I have a very, very tough mindset. I read books, I listen to podcasts, and I'm constantly working on mindset just to make sure, because we always have doubts, and I've been doing this 15 years. 15 years to be working in the brokerage industry, one of the toughest in the world, I would say, is not easy. And to have that longevity, you must be doing something right. And I think, 6-7 years ago when I started understanding that, okay, mindset's just an element of what I'm doing. What about my health? I mean, thankfully, I've always been relatively healthy, but I took my health very, very serious, because what's the point? Because having a healthy body automatically helps you having a healthy mindset as well, because it's all connected, right? And if you want longevity in the game, you've got to be fit, right? If you're not fit, you're not going to have longevity, full stop, right? So I took my health much more serious, right? And then, things like, it might sound things, but the soulful element of things, right? Ultimately, it's got to be more than just money. If you're doing it purely for the money, the money gives you freedom. Money gives you freedom to do what you want to do, play on your own terms, play by your own rules. That's why we all want money, right? But it's not about the love of the money itself. It should be a means to an end where, yes, you make money, but then it's to make your life better, your kids, your family, and you have that freedom element of it. I've seen people here that are genuinely in love with the money, and that's a dangerous trait to have, right? Because that's when ethics and morals start getting questioned. They'll do anything to get deals done. And I get it, it's a really tough industry. And that's where the element of your soul comes into it, right? Are you a person who can go to bed at night knowing that what you've done is correct, and the money that you're earning is halal, let's say, or whatever you want to call it, right? Because, ultimately, it's great earning on somebody, but if you're not doing it in the correct way, and, you don't have that peace of mind, again, what is the point, right? And I think the other thing as well, with that kind of soulful element as well, I think as humans, as we grow, we carry a lot of pain through experiences, through hurt, through relationships, things not really working out. And a lot of the time, we hold all those emotions inside.
Trauma.
Trauma. And what we don't realize is the older we become, and sometimes our reactions to certain things are traumas that we haven't worked on. And this is something it's taken me years to understand. What were my traumas, right? What were the things that was holding me back? And some of the things that happened in my past, which I blocked out, which I've had to kind of understand why I was maybe acting in a certain way. So for me, it was, getting your health right, getting your mindset right, making sure there's a soulful element to it as well, having a clean heart, and making sure that you maintain your relationships as well, your personal relationships. Because again, when you're working all the time, you tend, family relationships can kind of go apart.
By the wayside,
your relationship with your children. So I think it's having a balance. So it's having a vision for the future. So of course we should all have goals, and there should be a vision in 1 year, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, whatever it might be. I've always been very goal driven, and I've always been like that. But again, you've got to pivot all the time, because those things might not always work out. But more importantly, having a vision for the future is great. But more importantly is balancing that with happiness in the now. Because what's the point of having all these visions, but you're not living your life now, right? So it's what's happened in the past is the past. You learn, and you're going to learn from mistake. For me, failure is a prerequisite to success. No one gets successful by going on a linear journey. No one does that. It's up and down. It's just the way it is, right? So for me, it's understanding, finding that balance, having a life where you're living your life now. You learn from your mistakes from the past, let that be a lesson to you. And then you have a vision of the future. But then it's having all them in sync as well. Because if you're all about happiness in the now, earning money, spending it all, then it's out of sync, because what about the next 3 or 6 months or 1 year, right? Or if you're all about the vision of what I want to be in 1 year or 6 years, then you're not living now. And you're not giving people your attention because you're so focused on what's going to happen. So for me, it's actually having that balance in life as well. I think it's important as real estate agents, brokers. Yeah, it's a tough industry. You're self-employed. You need to see it as a business anyway. You should never see that as an employment. You should never see it as you working for someone. Every day you wake up, it's how do I take my business forward, right? And sometimes in life and in business, you've got to go backwards to go forwards.
Right.
With my new business that I started, hindsight, I've been in the industry 15 years. I've made a lot of mistakes in the last year. I had to go back and I've had to pivot. It's fine, because sometimes you've got to go back and you restructure things and think, okay, fine, I need to now do X, Y, and Z. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why if you have that balance, hopefully you don't get a burnout, and hopefully you can have a longevity in the industry. Because I see people all the time, they get burnt out because it really takes it out of you, because this job is 24/7. Clients don't stop messaging because it's weekend. Me now, this is recently I've done, after 7 o'clock, my phone's on silent. Unless I'm expecting a call or I really know that I need to answer someone, I don't really check my phone, because 90% of the messages are from other agents, and 99.9% of those messages can wait till the next day.
Right.
It's extremely rare that someone ringing me at 9 o'clock can't ring me up. And I wake up really early, so I'm up at 6 a.m. So if I see those messages, I'll message them at 6:30 or 7 o'clock, whatever it is, right? So for me, I'd rather do that earlier than in the evening when I'm trying to switch off, have some time with the kids, with the family, and actually get your brain to kind of settle down. Otherwise, you're constantly, on edge, and you never switch off, right? And then that affects your sleep, and again, the cycle of the sleep patterns and so forth, right? So I always say to agents, it's great you're in the industry, it's great that you're hustling and grinding, and it's all great, but have that balance as well. Don't just be all about mindset and working 24/7. Of course, if you're younger, I think you can kind of get away with it. In your 20s, you've got no commitments, you've got no children. I think you can get away with maybe working much more. But I think the older you get, if you don't have that balance, I think you just get out of sync. And I think you don't want to be the 56-year-old with lots of money, no relationships.
With their children, no friendships.
Yeah, and I think that's sad, right? So I think it's really key, the newer agents, and even maybe the older agents as well, see that and actually really put an emphasis on that as well.
So what other differences are there between Yasin today and 2010 Yasin?
Well, 2010, I used to wake up at 8 o'clock and try and get to the office by 8:59. And I'd always just be on time, and some of the agencies I worked for, you'd fine you 50 dirhams for being late. Right. And it was all that drama, right? Then I did, interestingly, when COVID happened, I started reading books more. I'm a bit of I'd say I was a late developer when it came to reading books and podcasts. Kind of 2016, 17 onwards I started, but books maybe COVID time. And interestingly, Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. book was a really interesting book for me. And I adapted that for about 2.5 years.
To 6 a.m.
But now I do 6 a.m. But the reason for that is because the 5 a.m. club worked for me, but then I realized the older I was getting, I needed more sleep.
Right.
And again, the 5 a.m. club is just a foundation. You can actually then do it in a way that suits your lifestyle, right? That's just, he's put it out there. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be up at 5 a.m. So I do the same concept. I have a morning routine. By now doing that at 6 a.m. So I rather wake up early, go to bed early. I wake up early, get a lot done early in the morning. So now, by the time I'm in the office by 9:30,
you've had like half a day.
Whereas before, I'd be in the office at 9. By 11, I'm kind of, and I don't drink coffee, so I don't get that big caffeine boost or whatever, right? And I never used to work out in the mornings before. Now I work out in the morning, which I think is a total game changer.
It's a life changer.
The endorphins and everything that gets you going. Because for me, to work out in the evening when you're supposed to be settling down, again, it's out of sync.
Doesn't work for you.
So I think just changing these things has really helped me.
Brilliant. Any other changes, any other differences between today, Yasin, and 2010?
I think I'm a lot more calm. I think I always used to be... I'd say I was a lot more social as well. I used to maybe, work very hard, socialise much more as well. Which, again, I try and socialise because, you still want to have that balance of having friends as well, right? You just don't want to be working or just... It's got to be, in life, it's there's multiple elements of things you want to have a balance, including friends and socializing as well. But rather than, try and go out 3-4 times a week, I maybe go out once a month now. So that's certainly slow. But I think it's just, as you age, I think you pick and choose things that you want to focus more on. And I think that's a natural progression in life anyway.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you let us know, what's the one thing you wish you knew before you embarked on your real estate career? Drop it in the comments.